Stay tuned now for a special conversation. Over now to India Today's managing editor, Gaurav Sawant.
So the B-2 bombers are now back safe in the United States of America. What has been the impact of the B-2 bombers at a time when Iran says its nuclear program will continue? It will continue to enrich uranium on its territory. What happens next? Joining me now on this India Today special broadcast is military analyst Tom Cooper, someone who's studied the operations very closely, someone who studies West Asia very closely. Tom Cooper, welcome on India Today. Your assessment of the damage done by the B-2 bombers, the GBU-57s that were dropped at Natanz and especially at Fordow. What's the impact at Fordow?
Hello, Gaurav. Nice to be with you. Thank you very much for inviting me. As for assessing the damage, this is de facto impossible to say more than what we see from satellite photographs, which is that a total of 6 impacts was there. So these 6 GBU-57s that have been dropped on Fordow have hit the mountain, some 960 meters, quite close to the peak and quite close to each other. So it is very likely that bombs have detonated quite deep under the surface and probably caused some damage to the Fordow facility. The only problem about all of this is that already 2 days before the US strike, the facility was already evacuated, which means that the Iranians have taken out everything valuable, especially enriched uranium, perhaps also all the equipment, and then they have buried literally with thousands of tons of gravel and earth the entrances to the facility. That means whatever the Americans have targeted, well, it was not particularly effective in the sense of stopping Iranian capability to enrich uranium. They have delayed it at most. And now even the US officials cannot say where are some 408 kilograms of enriched uranium.
408 kilograms of enriched uranium. And if we
Yes.
were to talk about the trinity of strikes, because I'm told close to 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles targeting Isfahan, Natanz, and the GBU-57s at Fordow. What would have been the impact on Iran's nuclear program in terms of the American strikes and the subsequent strikes that have been carried out by Israel? And Israel continues to strike, including the Bushehr facility and several air bases across Iran.
That is particularly interesting. You see, last week, after starting its attack on its aggression on Iran, Israel has claimed the nuclear facility in Natanz, the oldest nuclear enrichment facility in Iran, 30 meters under the ground, for destroyed. If this was true, why have the Americans yesterday bombed the same facility with 2 GBU-57s? Nobody knows. In the case of Natanz, there are satellite photographs showing one impact. That means that both bombs have hit the same place, which means almost certainly they have punched through and have destroyed one of the 2 holes, but the other hole is still intact. So that is Natanz. Then we have Fordow. I said 6 hits near the peak of the mountain above the facility. Very likely that the facility underneath is at least damaged, if not destroyed. But it was abandoned. It was evacuated and abandoned by the Iranians already days ago, because they have had enough time to not only to evacuate, but also to cover all the entrances with thousands of tons of gravel and sand. So this is that part of the story. And then we have the 3rd facility attacked by the Americans. This is the overground facility in Isfahan. Yes, exactly. Here, the Israelis have also claimed to have destroyed this facility, and then it turns out the Americans need 30 cruise missiles to destroy it. So obviously, Israeli claims are exaggerated, while whatever the Americans have deployed and destroyed over there, it was already too late because the Iranians have evacuated on time. That is the conclusion from military point of view. You can now talk about, what kind of repercussions this has for diplomacy, for whatever. But from military point of view, the US strike came much too late. That is the point. while the Israeli airstrikes were not the least effective.
And this would mean that Iran had done its job well. It's had a decades old nuclear program. Are they close to weaponization? Can they still go ahead with weaponization? Because Iran insists at least enrichment of uranium will continue. And will they now perhaps short circuit the process in your appreciation and speed the process of getting their atomic bombs?
It is a very good question, and presently the answer is unknown. Why? Because, for example, Majlis, the Iranian
Yes.
parliament, there was talk about abandoning the NPT, but the parliament did not bring a final decision in this regards. And even if it has actually just forwarded this decision to the National Security Council in Tehran. So now everybody is waiting. What is the National Security Council? This is Supreme Leader, Commanders of Armed Forces, Intelligence, and so on. What are they going to decide? And they apparently cannot decide what to do as next because the Supreme Leader is out of touch most of the time, because Mossad is running a manhunt after him, that they are trying to assassinate him, and he has already survived the several assassination attempts in the last few days. So the Iranians have a problem to communicate with him, so to say. On the other hand, I said, the problem is if they decide to abandon NPT, then yes, they are going to continue enriching somewhere else under hidden super secret circumstances, and then nobody can say what are they going to manage, how soon, or whatever else. If not, then they are going to enable further inspections by the International Atomic Organization.
Because so far it does appear to be one, failure of the United Nations, two, failure of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the manner in which first Israel went and struck their nuclear facilities, which Iran says were already monitored by the IAEA. Then the United States went and struck these facilities, which Iran has called blatantly illegal. But what's your assessment, sir, of the damage in the past 11 days of airstrikes and missile strikes, first by Israel and then yesterday by the United States of America, to the overall one command and control structure and Iran as a potent, capable military force?
Permit me to first observe one thing. When we are talking about failure of the international organizations, there is actually, insofar, a failure. There is a collapse of the entire system established since 1944-45. That means the UN Charter, all the possible international conventions. Israel is violating all of them, flagrantly, really, absolutely, with complete disregard for any kind of international treaties, conventions, international humanitarian law, laws of war, whatever you want. Israel is violating all of this already in the case of Palestine. Israel has launched now an aggression of Iran, which is also against the UN Charter, because this was absolutely unprovoked. And then also Israel has violated NPT by striking enemy, or in this case, Iran, nuclear facilities. So Iran has actually the right to say, sorry, but the Article 10 of the NPT says, if you strike my nuclear facilities, I'm not tied to NPT anymore. The Americans did the same. So this is one point. That means that the entire system of this law and order international law and order established since 45 has collapsed. It's worth nothing. Even more so if you consider that Trump has been caught negotiating with Putin behind the backs of NATO allies. That means even NATO is actually pointless, null and void, meanwhile, because the top power of NATO is negotiating secretly with the Russians. On the other hand, when you talk about Israeli attack on Iran, this attack is full of bragging, exaggerations, and claims which are without substance. For example, Israeli Air Force is claiming it is in control of Iranian airspace, but it's perhaps 2 times a week flying manned aircraft into the Iranian airspace, and then only for 100, 150 kilometers, not deeper. They're all the time shooting aeroballistic missiles into Iran. They're not flying actually into Iran. When you check with people in Baghdad, they are all the time seeing Israeli aircraft coming from Israel, shooting their weaponry in the direction of Iran, and then turning around without actually entering Iranian airspace. So this control of Iranian airspace is questionable. Then they are hitting here and there. They are hitting lots of military facilities. They are hitting police stations. They are hitting hospitals as well. They have disabled or damaged or even hit directly a total of 8 hospitals and ambulances and emergency centers in Iran. Meanwhile, they are targeting ambulance cars with UAVs. So the entire quality of what are they doing over there is questionable as well. They have attempted, they have been also highly successful, absolutely no doubt about this, to disable the entire political and military leadership of Iran, to assassinate the supreme leader, who is the head of state. They have killed nearly all of top commanders of the IRGC and the armed forces. So they have been extremely successful in this. They have caused quite a lot of chaos. The government was even forced to shut down the internet for 3 days in Iran in order to curb this Mossad operations, this car bombs, car bombing attacks, UAV attacks, intelligence collection, and so on. And they have arrested probably 100 meanwhile out of estimated 1,000 Mossad operatives. So Israel was on one side successful in certain fields, but absolutely unsuccessful in other fields.
Does Iran remain a coherent military force, and will it continue to target Israel? The manner in which even today, of course, we are told only one missile, but yesterday a hypersonic missile was used by Iran. What's your assessment of the kind of weapons Iran still has and the launchers it still has to launch those missiles into Israel? Because each time there's a launch, Israel is able to strike at the launcher. So even if Iran has missiles, will it have as many launchers to continue to strike? And your assessment, how long, sir?
No, my assessment, how long? That is precisely the point of what you are, or the answer you have asked to the question you have asked. Israel claims to have destroyed 200 missile launchers in Iran. It has provided evidence for perhaps 15, not more. And Iranians certainly have over 200. That means 300 in that direction. That is first point. The second point is the way Iranians are meanwhile deploying their ballistic missiles against Israel is very economic. Why? Because they have, during the first few days, they have mapped the Israeli air defenses. They have found out how they're operating, what can they do, where are they deployed, and so on. So now they know how they work, and now they have operate very economically. This is, relatively small strikes, not more than 30 missiles, perhaps 32, 34 a day, but they are striking. The number of successful missile launches is slowly increasing. Why? Because of attrition of Israeli interceptor missiles on one side. On the other hand, because the Iranians are getting ever better. So there are estimates that they have around 3,000 ballistic missiles and that they have used something like 400 or 500 by now. That means if they go on with a tempo of, let's say, 10 to 20 a day, they can go on for the next 3.5 months or something like that. They can keep this a battle of attrition, which Israel can ill afford because its entire economy is momentarily paralyzed. The people cannot go to work in the morning, and many have to work from home or not even that. So Iran cannot reasonably, Iran cannot reasonably win this war in some kind of military context, but it can keep Israel under pressure. That is perfectly enough.
And that's exactly what it appears to be doing right now. In your appreciation, has Israel been able to achieve the aim it set out to achieve, delay or destroy the nuclear weapons program of Iran, to missile capabilities of Iran? Will they still pursue what is being described as aim plus, not officially, but unofficially, though Donald Trump did refer to make Iran great again in terms of a regime change, or is that a pipe dream?
So regime change through an invasion or aggression from abroad in Iran is out of question. This is not going to work because any kind of invasion is prompting Iranians to rally around the flag. That it means whoever is in charge, it doesn't matter who is in charge in Tehran, they're patriotic, they're fighting back. And this is not going to work. So that the regime has been shaken in its fundamentals, no doubt about this. So this is a partial success, so to say. In regards of nuclear program, delayed. How long? I don't know. We are going to see. But point is, Iranians have evacuated their enriched uranium. Most likely, also the majority of related equipment. They are going to hide it somewhere else and continue processing. So this is also partial success. In terms of weakening Iranian armed forces, they are huge. You cannot weaken them just like that. Of course, they have suffered losses. Israelis are claiming up to 200 launchers for surface-to-air missiles destroyed. Could be, I haven't seen evidence for 200, rather something like 50. But definitely Iranians have suffered losses in these regards. Iranian Air Force wasn't a particular power already before the war. It's flying only obsolete aircraft. This is caused by the fact that IRGC wouldn't let the regular Air Force get new aircraft, but also by refusal of Russia to deliver any kind and earlier inability of China to deliver what would be interesting for Iran. So Iranian Air Force is no factor in this war, actually. So you have
Your
no
assessment.
clear-cut victory. You have no
Okay.
this decisive victory for Israel. On the contrary, they have failed to conclude this in a few days as they have planned. And now they have no way out. Now they are actually hoping that Tehran might offer a ceasefire. But Tehran is not
Yes.
going to offer a ceasefire. That is the point.
Yeah, because they say we are a civilizational state. There is no question of a ceasefire, a proud nation that is fighting back. So, what would Donald Trump's strategy be at a time when both Russia and China are not only waiting in the wings, watching from the wings? China has condemned it. You heard what Dmitry Medvedev from Russia said. He's made a very strong point. Your assessment: will any country provide a nuclear warhead? As Dmitry Medvedev seemed to indicate, or is that just posturing for the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
That is even less than that. Medvedev is time and again posting, excuse me for expression, drunken statements on the social media. Forget about that. That is, we are following this all through the Russian invasion of Ukraine for 3 years. Meanwhile, he's babbling nonsense all the time. But in similar fashion, Trump has no strategy, or at least no other strategy, than diverting public attention from his actions in the United States, most of which are related to influencing the market, stock exchanges, so that he and his supporters are earning extra money. And we are talking here about billions and dozens of billions, what they are earning to manipulate in the markets. This is what he is doing. And he is now thinking, just one airstrike and the United States can come out of this. We are going to see whether the Iranians take it that way or not, because now he has given initiative to them. They can now strike all out with missiles at American air bases in the Middle East, because they have enough missiles to do so, because the ranges are shorter than those to Israel. They can also decide, okay, we are going to be quiet and strike back asymmetrically, which means through sabotage operations deep in the U.S. Background, unconventional attacks on U.S. bases or interest in the Middle East. They have the options now. The Americans not. The only option for the Americans is to reinforce the attack and to invade Iran, which nobody in the United States wants to do. They know that they are not going to, they cannot win such a war.
So a regime change cannot happen unless you put boots on ground, and there are no votaries for boots on ground inside Iran. And such a huge country, and regime change operations wherever America tried have been a disaster. America and Europe,
Yes,
whether it's Libya or Iraq
Libya is a bit
or
different, but
Syria.
yeah. Libya is a little bit different story, because in Libya there was a popular uprising as first, and then NATO intervention. And then what happened after that? NATO has offered Libyans, the new government, to deploy a stabilization force to help with reorganization of the armed forces, of militias into the new armed forces. And then what happened? Libyan government said no. Why? Because one part of Libyan government or parliament was bribed by United Arab Emirates, and the other part was bribed by Qatar.
Yes.
These two are
But
at odds.
if I come back to the point,
Sorry.
do you think Iran blocked the Strait of Hormuz, and would that be a disaster, or is that just a threat that will not be carried out? Because that would impact Asia and specifically China in a big
China,
way.
yes, yeah. I can say only what I know, and this is that as of this morning, I have no confirmation from my contacts in Iran that they are intending to block the Hormuz. Whether they are going to do this or not, I don't know. I know that there was some talk about this issue in Majlis, in the Iranian parliament. Apparently, there is no conclusion in this regard, so we have to wait and see. But
And
if
in
it
your
happens,
appreciation,
if it happens, if the Iranians block Hormuz, the Americans are going to react and to attack them even more. On the other hand, this is going to result in hostilities and slow down of oil exports, especially to China. 20-something% of Chinese oil is coming to the Hormuz. So automatically, increased oil prices, which is in favor of Russia in particular, because Russia was short on money. Now it's flushed with money because oil prices are already higher, and so on and so on. So plenty of options, which are said again, without a decisive, without Iranian decision, final decision in this regard, it's hard to estimate who is going to do what and what is going to come out of this.
very interesting, because if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, then the Fifth Fleet at Bahrain may get active, and then American assets and interests and so many bases in West Asia would automatically, including the ones in Iraq, would be under threat. But would that benefit Iran if it were to target American interests in West Asia? Or, in your appreciation, sabotage terrorism in continental America, that could be the way forward, because that too is a real threat, isn't it?
Methinks there are two options in this regard. There are, so to say, short-term outlooks for such an operation by Iran and long-term. In short-term, it wouldn't benefit Iran. Why? Because the Americans would hit back with all their military might, and they really have the capability and firepower. They would really hurt Iran very badly. So, provided the regime would then survive such a blow, in long-term, however, Iran is enjoys a massive advantage, simply because it's in the Middle East. The Americans are not in the Middle East. They have to bring everything from the United States or from Europe to the Middle East, to their bases in the Middle East, which means a huge logistical strain for the United States, which means we would then be talking about another war like in Iraq, Iran probably instigating civil wars, bombing attacks, unrest, political unrest. More than political unrest, they could even instigate an insurgency in eastern Saudi Arabia or in Bahrain, where the majority of population are Shia. So, you have plenty of possibilities in this, plenty of options in long term. But in short term, it would hurt Iran massively. So what happens
So Iran
then?
is not down and out in your appreciation right now.
No,
Iran does hold a couple of aces up its sleeve.
Yes. In long term, is in particular, the longer this goes on, the more advantage on Iranian side.
I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. Tom Cooper, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks. Iran holds a couple of aces, and in this battle of attrition, unless there is decisive victory for either side, this battle of attrition does appear to be advantage Iran, at least for now. For joining me here on this special broadcast, Tom Cooper, many thanks.
Thank you very much as well.